Welcome to Tango Simplified, episode number 50. That means that since the beginning of the year, I have done 50 of these episodes on the various concepts in tango, specifically social tango. We've gone through some of the most common vocabulary. We talked about technique. And as we start wrapping up the year, I want to extend my gratitude, first of all, to all of you who contributed to me coming up with these topics, those of you who submitted questions and submitted comments whenever I post these videos. I really appreciate your participation in this. And also, as I'm looking ahead into 2025 and making lists of topics that I want to cover in the coming year, I would love to hear from you and see if there are any specific questions or topics that have been on your mind that you would like me to address in the new year. Now, the topic today is actually inspired by a recent podcast episode that I was listening to with a dancer who has been on the scene for quite some time. And he was talking about going to Buenos Aires for the past 20 plus years. He started going there in the early 2000s. And when asked what is his perspective on what has changed in Buenos Aires since he started going in 2000, the number one thing that he said was floorcraft, that navigation and floorcraft have become so bad, even in Buenos Aires, that he, as a seasoned dancer, frequently makes the decision not to go out, even in Buenos Aires, because the floorcraft is so poor. So I thought I would contribute my 2 cents once again to giving you some tools and ways of thinking about navigation and floorcraft that will be helpful for you to be good at it, for you to excel at it, and to feel confident even when you're in Buenos Aires, even when it's very crowded. Now, no matter how long you've been dancing and how much vocabulary you have under your belt, floorcraft, or the demand for navigation skills, levels out the playing field for everyone. So even if you have a lot of vocabulary under your belt, you won't be able to apply it if you don't know how to make it fit into the line of dance. So let's start with the fact that when you're dancing tango as a social dancer, the number one fact of the dance is that you are walking on a line. You are in a lane of dancers. And frequently that's the first thing that gets lost. Why? Because when we learn tango, we focus on the movement. So if I'm a leader and I'm learning a figure, a lot of times I'm learning it as a way of measuring steps from myself to my partner, or seeing where my partner is in relation to me. I'm not thinking about being in space. So for a lot of tango dancers who start out and they learn a lot of vocabulary, it's not necessarily built into the process that you'll know how to actually put it on a line of dance. But that's a really important concept, because think about it. If you were in a car driving, if you didn't have lanes, you could go anywhere. You could turn the car around, you could stop whenever you want, right? But you can't do that driving on a road with traffic, with other people, right? So you have to obey certain parameters. The same thing applies when you are dancing in a line of dance. In tango, it's like you're driving. You are moving on a road, on a path, and you and your partner are that vehicle moving together. So I have a line here to represent this line of dance, and I want to start with some tips for leaders, how to think about your relationship to this line. Whenever I talk about the line of dance in this perspective, I think about that I want to progress along this line of dance. I want to walk along this line of dance as evenly as possible. But because we cannot progress in the line of dance a lot of times because there's traffic, then I have to find a way to dance in place without moving forward. As I'm walking, if I start to do some sort of a turn, for example, what I want to do as a leader is think everything is done in relation to this line. So let's say I invite my follower into a right turn and then another right turn. The way I'm going to think about it is this right turn exists in relation to this line. So whenever I'm leading, whether I'm turning to the right or to the left, as I'm walking, so this would be sort of approximating how I'm moving around my partner, you see everything I'm doing is I'm basing it on the line. So as you are walking in the line of dance, imagine that with your feet, you're actually tracing shapes around the line. I'm not saying you have to stay exactly on the line. It's more of a reference point. And it should be sort of built in as a reflex for you to be aware when you stray away from the line. So if I start something with my partner and I go further away from the line, that I feel in my body that I need to rejoin the line as soon as possible. So as a leader, having that metaphor available in your mind, like you're driving, you're on a road, you're in a lane, and whatever movement you do, you want to do it in relationship to this line. Last point I want to make is about the back steps. Most of the time, the frustration that people have on the dance floor with certain leaders is coming out of the back step problem. When you learn the 6-count basic, the 8-count basic, the box step, if you learn that pattern early on, it begins with a back step. And for a lot of leaders, that's sort of their MO. They can't start any other way. It's like the beginning of their movement is that back step. Even in my own dance, I cannot get rid of it altogether. It's sort of a very natural, very easy way of entering into sequences. But one tip I'll give you is that instead of thinking about the back step in the direction, the opposite direction of the line of dance, this way, to avoid collision, what you can do is actually just direct your step more at a diagonal this way. So it requires a little bit more of your awareness in terms of how you're faced in the line of dance. But a very neat trick that you can use for your back steps, whether you're doing milonga or tango, is that as you're dancing, track your back steps more towards the diagonal position along the line of dance this way, rather than going all the way back. Another way you can make that back step a little less offensive or dangerous is just make it really small. So instead of traveling back a full size of the step, you just make this back step really small, and that way you avoid colliding into someone else. For followers, it's especially important to be aware of your direction as you're walking backwards. So as a follower, what's really important is that when I am walking with my leader, that I'm walking along this line in a straight line, and then I have that awareness of what straight behind me means. Okay, so that's one of the core skills that you have to develop as a follower, and I do want to do a separate video just on the technique of walking backwards, because there is so many details involved. But for now, just think, as a follower, your number one job is being able to walk back in a straight line, not veering, not doing diagonal lines, not stepping here and then here, but being really aware that you're helping the leader to stay on the line of dance, as if you are the front wheels of the car and the leader is the back wheels of the car. Somehow the car analogy is really embedded in me today. Now, when you start walking around your leader, let's take molinete, for example. The molinete pattern would be forward, side, back, side, forward. So as I'm walking it, I'm thinking about that I want to be as close to this line, this center line as possible. So as the leader is moving around me and I'm moving around the leader, my awareness is that I want to be as close to my leader as possible, especially when I'm going around them. So let's say my leader is leading me around them to this side, right? And my step is forward, okay? I can take this forward step. I can go here. I can go here. And how do I decide where to go? How do I make that decision in my body? Well, I say I need to be as close to my leader as possible because I want to be close to this line that we're walking. So I'm going to go this way. I'm going to step as close as I can on either side. The other point I want to make, and this is a sticky point for follower technique because it's hard to pinpoint in yourself when it happens. On side steps, when I am doing a side step, it's really important that as a follower, I understand that my side steps need to be really side. My hips need to be level, going side to side. So this is a side step in this direction. But if my leader was to lead me side to go in this direction, I would need to be turned so that my hips are facing this way and it would be side this way or side this way. What frequently happens when we're not really watching is that I might be led to go side this way, like this, but I'll actually take a step that's more like this, where it's not really side and it's not really forward. And it happens because we're just thinking, oh, it's just this direction. But as a follower, especially when we're thinking about navigation, staying in the line of dance, the follower's job is to really be precise with the direction of the steps. And we have 3 directions. We have a forward, back, and side. So for you to know that your craft, your skill, your lines, your aesthetic in your follower role, a lot of time is resting on the foundation of you being able to make these very clear directions, forward, back, or side. So to recap, as a leader, as I'm walking on the line, and everything I'm doing is in relation to this line. Wherever I go, I always come back to the line. And of course, when you're dancing in a regular line of dance, it's something that you build into your awareness because you don't actually have a line underneath you, but you want to keep imagining that. Now, as a follower, I'm walking back on this line, and then whenever the leader is inviting me to go around them, I'm tracking my steps as close as I can to my leader, being aware that every step I make is a true side, a true forward, or a true back. Let me know if you have other questions about this particular issue. I want to know if you have had difficulty with navigation, if you have other suggestions for how you manage navigation and developing floorcraft. Go ahead and pop them in the comments below. If this is your first time joining my series and you've made it this far, I invite you to go ahead and click that subscribe button because I post one of these every week on Saturdays, and I hope I see you next time. Ciao.